I'm Chris Bussing. Welcome to my channel. It's committed to helping more people create a life of freedom and impact through success in tech sales and the pursuit of self-development. We've got an amazing guest today, Richard Harris, a SaaS sales leader of 20 plus years, recognized by Salesforce as a top voice in the industry 3 times in a row. He's consulted the best of the best companies, the brands we all know and love like Google, Zoom, and Salesforce. And he's got a new book coming out called The Seller's Journey. We're going to dig into that book. We're going to dig into his philosophy of neat selling and everything from prospecting to closing the deal. So make sure to stay for the whole conversation. Richard, thanks so much for being here. How's your day going so far?
It's going well, other than right before this, like my computer started to crap out on me. So I apologize for that. But we're here and we're good. So
I'm so glad we figured it out. The nature of technology is there are issues. And don't you find that in customer conversations, when you're giving a demo, sometimes like there'll be glitches and road bumps. And when you're trying to show the value of the solution, like how do you typically handle those like awkward technical moments?
Well, it depends on the technical moment. So one is you show up early. That's the first thing, which clearly I didn't. I showed up 4 minutes early. I should have shown up 6 minutes early at least. So that's probably the best thing that I would tell you to do.
I love that.
The other is be honest about it. Like everybody's had it. Everybody's been through it, right? You know, there's a difference between the technology of one's computer or microphone not working and your technology of a demo. If you got that problem, you know, there's some, you know, that's embarrassing. That's hard to get over and it's hard to get through, but you still own up to it. Whatever it is that happens, it's just like anything else in life. You own up, you apologize. Sometimes you can be a little self-deprecating about it.
Yes.
And then you move forward. I think it's kind of like one of those things where I remember when I was first learning how to do some speaking, like in college, like in a communication class, you know, the advice, and I'm sure others have heard this, is if you make a mistake, don't stop and correct it, just go forward. Nobody's, you know, they might think about it, but you're going to recapture them and just let them hear you. So, you know, just keep going. And it's hard to do because as humans, we're taught to own our mistakes, fix problems. That's the biggest challenge, I think.
What a fun little tangent that was so unexpected to go down and very insightful because this is a part of the sales and human experience. Sure. We'll have mistakes happen and blunders, but we can turn those blunders into blessings. Okay, that was cheesy, but I have seen in sales, I just had to say it, it came out. I'm a cheesy guy, but I've seen moments in my sales career back in my Oracle days and even Google and now at my current startup where I turn the awkward moments into a moment of connection. But anyways, I don't know if you have anything you want to riff.
That's really poignant. And I think regardless of what it'll flow with the rest of the conversation as you turn those things into moments of connection because it just shows we're all human.
So let's get the audience amped up, and thank you to the folks who are live now and those who will see this video as it floats out in the evergreen YouTube sea. Let's talk about why you love sales as a profession and career path.
So I'm one of the rare people who always knew I was going to be in business. I didn't know if that meant sales, but my first job in high school was at the Gap. Like literally my first sales process was called Gap Act. Greet, approach, product knowledge, add-on, close, and thank you. So that I didn't even know that was a sales process. I was just doing what I was told.
I never heard of that one.
Yeah, wow. And I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. And I was like, I was in high school and I got discounts on clothes, and you know. And then in college I did it again, and I did it there because I knew it would be a great logo on my resume. That being said, you can go all the way back to about 6th grade. I think the first thing I did is I sold Jolly Ranchers at school, like these little packs of Jolly Ranchers. You're not to do that. You know, you're not supposed to do that as a kid. So, but anyway, so I did that, and it was money. Like, why did I like it? Because of money. I wanted to have some money.
Hey.
Both my parents were in business. My mom's still working as a financial analyst and broker. So I've been doing stocks since I was 14 or 15, and my dad was in insurance sales when he was around. And so I kind of grew up with the conversation, right? Like I knew early on about business and stocks at the age of 6. You know, I had a couple of shares or something that were gifted. So
that's unbelievable.
Yeah. So it's all been a part of me. So it makes sense, right? I like the fact that you don't need a college degree to excel. I like the fact you don't need a college degree to actually grow your career into business as much as people put that up there. It's kind of a bunch of BS, in my opinion. I know a ton of people with masters who are terrible leaders, like, so anyway, so that's what I like, is like it's self-fulfilling.
So there's a lot of folks out in this audience and that follow this channel that want to break into tech sales as an SDR at a top SaaS company.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to go through interviews, and I've heard the hiring manager question many times, what motivates you? And I noticed you said you're very money motivated. And I tell people, don't shy away from the fact that you're money motivated and you want to get paid, and consequentially your manager is going to get paid too. I just love your thoughts on, like, is it something to really be proud about, to be money motivated? And is that a good sign that sales is a good path?
Yeah. I mean, nobody got in sales because they want to be poor and miss the number. Don't like, and if you find a leader who's like, we think that's too greedy, it's like, well, bet they have a Harvard MBA and they suck at leadership. Like that's a perfect example of bad leadership. That being said, it doesn't have to be the only thing, right? But for me, the worst answer to that question, why do you want to be, is, well, I really like helping people and da. Sure you do. I get it. But that's not the main reason you're going into sales. If you want to do that, you'd be in customer success, you'd be in customer service, you'd be more of an account manager than a closer, right? Another great answer I tell people all the time is to say, I like to win. In fact, I even say, why do I want to be in sales? Because I hate losing more than I like winning, and I got to win, right? Like that's the key piece. Like one of my sons is very competitive, but until he makes the realization that he hates losing more than he likes winning, he's going to be, he doesn't want to do as much practicing. So he's going to have to make that decision. So it's a long answer. Sorry.
Richard, you blew my mind, by the way, and I'll tell you in a second, when we said you got to hate losing more than you like winning. But go ahead, and I got to tell you a little anecdote.
The other thing is, if a sales leader, even if it's a new SDR role, right? You're new to the business, and they say, why do you want to be in sales? It's a terrible question. It's a terrible question for your leader to ask you. The only reason they're asking is because they've been asked 100 times too. What a leader should be asking is, what motivates you to do a good job? When was the last time you lost at something? How did it feel? I don't need to tell you why I want to be in sales. Like, that's just stupid. It's like, why do you want to be in marketing? Why do you want to be in IT? Because that's what I like doing. Like, give me a break. Anyway, I know I can be a little snarkier than I'm not 23, right? Like I got to be mindful and got to get my job. So I get it, but still a terrible question.
And we brought you into this podcast to learn from your wisdom, and it's been a conversation full of gold so far. It's awesome. And so I wanted to acknowledge that I had a lunch with an AWS seller today. I'm at a cloud services company that works with AWS to implement their technology, and we co-sell together. And so, of course, I take these sellers out to lunch, and they can throw me deals and leads, and it's one of the best things I could be doing to build those relationships. Justin and I were talking, and he literally said what you said. I hate losing way more than I like winning. I just like, talk about serendipity, or what are the chances? And he's a top performer that just got promoted. He was an inside seller, got promoted to the field. But what are the chances that you said that, and then he said that too today?
He probably follows me and knows how brilliant I think I am, and all those kind of things. So.
Exactly. So guys, if anything, make sure to follow Richard on LinkedIn. He puts out great content. And speaking of great content,
I tell you, I'm brilliant.
If you want to become a genius, follow Richard.
Yeah, and then do everything opposite.
Right. Oh man, I'm curious. What are your thoughts on how to accelerate success in sales? This is a conceptual question, but is the answer really modeling after mentors? You could read sales books, you could get on the court and take action and make a lot of calls. And these are all things I've thought of, so I'm kind of projecting onto you. But what's your answer on how you can accelerate success, especially as you launch your tech sales career?
You learn from everybody, right? And I also think you have to practice stuff out, right? Even as much as 45 years ago, you'd be in the office and you'd hear the person sitting next to you do this great thing, and then you'd try it and it would be terrible for you. Well, it's because you didn't practice it. So, and again, back, 4 or 5 years ago, you would drive or take part and you have to mumble it out to yourself or say it in the car to yourself or do it in front of the mirror so that you can hear how you sound. Like I teach a lot of stuff, and you know, here's what I'll say. You need scripts. How do you get better? You script it, just like you script a football play, just like you have a script at a play. And understand, because I know a lot of people here, people will go in the chat and tell me how much they hate scripts. Go for it. You might give me a heart attack, but live on YouTube. But there's a huge difference between having a script and sounding scripted. And when I say a script, I don't mean bullet points or guidelines and all that other BS that people love to throw out there. I'm literally saying word for word, this is what it sounds like. Now, you practice it, you know it. Over time, every time you do it, it'll become more authentic. And so what was on the page the first time, by the time you really get it down, you'll probably do about 80 or 90% of it anyway. So that is the key piece of a script. And I guarantee you, every person who wants to come and say they hate scripts, they don't like scripts, I guarantee you have many scripts where you say the same thing over and over again in this one little part. When they ask about the product and how does it work, got an answer. When they ask about the competition, boom, got an answer. Like those are scripts, right? So just don't confuse that scripts are bad, and make sure you understand there's a difference between having a script and sounding scripted. I don't want anybody to sound scripted. And the first time you do it, you're going to sound scripted because it's the first time you do it. So, anyway.
So there's a difference between having a script and sounding scripted, and having a script is actually the answer and the best thing you can do. And it's just a matter of practicing enough to where you sound authentic. Yep. And so, by the way, Steven Rivera says such good points so far. Steven, thanks for showing up, and I totally agree with you.
Steven, $1 on your Venmo. Send me your Venmo, Steven.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we got a comedy act here too. Sales, comedy, everything.
These are the jokes. They're not going to get any better, I promise.
I love it. No, you're better than me though. I'm a dad joke guy, and I'm so cheesy. But the good thing about telling a lot of dad jokes is once in a while I'll tell an actual clever joke, and people are blown away. They're like, "Wow, it was uncharacteristic of you." So Richard, when it comes to scripts, my mind immediately jumps to cold calling. And I do want to dig into cold calling and how you open calls and get into the technicalities, because I notice just in growing this channel and podcast, everyone wants to talk about it. So we have to hit on it. Yeah. Before we get into it though, where else do you use scripts? Or it sounds like you could use it for demos or different scenarios, but where are the other areas?
Yeah, so I have a thing that I call a respect contract, where that's how I intro a first call, right? Like we get on the call, how do I do that?
Oh, I want to hear that, but keep going. I'll put a pin in it.
That's one. Then you can take that respect contract and go, okay, well, what do I say right before a demo call? What do I say if it's the customer success onboarding call? Right? It's, the key is to establish respect for both of you and put you both on an equal playing field. And then you can even have many respect contracts along the way. So that's one, that's sort of like the big one. But here's a script, right? Like people say, okay, well, how do you compare to your competition? And I'll go, Chris, that's a great question. Would you like to hear what our most successful clients tell us when they compare us to the competition?
I would.
That's a script.
I love that.
And what prospect or customer doesn't want to be the most successful? Who's going to say, no, I don't want to hear what you have to say? And finally, on top of that, you're saying, here's what my customers tell me, not me. So I'm a third-party verification.
That's so brilliant. The psychology of wanting to win and be successful and do what their peers are doing. And also you're like, don't take it from me as the seller. You don't want to hear from me. You want to hear from a customer like you. And so that line is brilliant. Can you just say it for emphasis one more time?
There's two of them I use. One is, thanks so much for asking about that, Chris. Would you be open to hearing what our most successful clients say when they compare us? So you can say it that way. The other way you can say it is, hey, thanks so much, Chris, for asking. Would you be open to hearing what our happiest customers tell us? So keep in mind,
nice.
So keep in mind, if someone's coming to you and service is important, or they've had a bad customer success or a bad customer service experience, well, they're unhappy. And to some extent, and you kind of have to sort of figure it out through discovery, you know, even if they don't have your competitor, they're unhappy with something. So if you can figure out, is it a pain because you need to grow and resolve, or is it you're just so fed up and frustrated? So you could use that phrase successful or happy, you know, kind of depending. And believe me, if you choose quote unquote the wrong one, it's not bad. They're all going to say, the answer is they're all going to say, yeah, I'll listen. I'll hear what you have to say.
I noticed that you have a great calm demeanor and tone when delivering the script and when communicating with customers. Can you speak to the importance of tone and what that communicates and what type of tone we should be aiming for, especially for sellers early in their career that might be experiencing some nerves?
Yeah, it's a really good one. I actually learned this from Aaron Ross, who was, you know, sort of the, one of the godfather of the SDR role back literally about 12 years ago when he wrote Predictable Revenue.
Oh, I read that book. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Predictable Revenue.
And there's lots of tones which we can go over, but the most interesting thing that I learned from him was that one of the best tones of voice is act like you're asking for directions or giving directions. So when I was saying, hey, Chris, would you be open to hearing what my customers have? I'm like, Chris, you know, I don't know you, but how do I get from West 37th to East 45th? Like, I'm asking for some direction, right? Even though I'm leading the conversation. And then you can flip it. Oh, you would like to hear, okay, well, you know, based on what you shared, Chris, you know, we had this similar customer who had the problem, and this is how they were, you know, this is what they said about us versus them. Does that feel like that resonates the right way with you? So now I'm asking for directions, I'm giving some directions, and then I'm asking for directions again. And so I just thought that was a really great, simple way to remember it. There are other tones. There's a paraphrasing tone, right? Hey, you know, if I heard you correctly, blah, 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 blah. There's a hypothetical tone. So Chris, if we did this, what would go wrong? If we did this, what would go right? So there's hypothetical tones. And again, you're still kind of asking for directions still, right? They're all questions. So that's why I like that baseline of just you're either asking for or giving directions for tone.
And it's when you're asking for directions, it's like you're asking the customer to help you out. And to me, my impression is it's non-threatening and you're putting them in control when subtly, I mean, you're kind of steering the conversation. Am I on to something there?
Yeah. I mean, but think about 100%, but think about it. You go to the doctor and the same thing happens. So tell me what happened, right? Like, you know, okay, how did you know, when you fell, what happened? Did you hit your head? Like, they're asking for you to give some direction, and then they go, oh, okay, based on this, here's what I recommend, right? So it's the same thing. You go, you know, get a car fixed, you need to go mail something. It's like, hey, how much does this cost? And we're like, okay, well, where are you sending it to? Oh, okay, well, if you go there, then it's going to be the, you know. So it's pretty simple, and it happens everywhere.
I have so many questions I want to ask you about. Sitting in my brain, I can go a lot of directions. I want to talk about the ability to earn the right to ask questions, but you also mentioned the N.E.A.T scripts, or excuse me, respect scripts. And I want to talk about your N.E.A.T philosophy. I'm going to choose the respect scripts and I'll put a pin in the others, but let's talk about the respect scripts.
So the respect contract is exactly that. And that's where you earn the right to ask questions. So I can role play it for like not 60 or 90 seconds if you want. So
yeah, sounds good.
You know, so Chris, just you're the customer, the prospect, since you're the only one here. By the way, if people in the audience have questions, put them in the chat. You know, Chris and I can go on for hours, but you're here to learn, so we want to make sure we cover that.
Thank you so much for calling that out, by the way. And I mean, what a unique opportunity for the audience. So anyways.
Yeah. So it goes like, hey, Chris, it's Richard. How you doing?
Not bad. A little busy.
Yeah, no, I totally understand, Chris. You know, I've got us down for 30 minutes. I know you're busy. Does 30 minutes still work for you?
Yep. I do have a hard stop though.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. I was going to ask, and just so you know, at like 25 minutes, wherever we are, I'm just going to call a timeout. We're going to see where we're at. I don't know. We'll have another conversation, or maybe this will be it. But I just want to make sure we have a minute to kind of to wrap up on that. And I think we're both here for the same reason. Like, you're here to do some fact finding about me and what I do and how I can help. And likewise, I need to do some fact finding about you and see what you're going through and see if I can offer anything. Is there anything in particular you want to make sure we cover today?
Yeah, no, I was doing a little homework on your solution, and I noticed this one technical feature that might be relevant, and I'm curious to dig into it a little bit and also hear a little bit about how you're helping similar clients.
Yeah, fair enough, and we will definitely cover it. And before we get into that, I just want you to know, Chris, look, if in this conversation or any other conversation you feel like I'm not a good fit, let me know. Like, I don't need to waste your time. And likewise, if I discover I can't help you, I'll be the first to say so, and I'll even tell you who you should talk to. We kind of all know our swim lanes here, and so yeah, I want to do business with people, but only if it's the right business for everybody. Is that fair?
Yeah, that actually sounds great.
Great. And that way I don't have to send you, reaching out and checking in and touching base emails that I'm sure are already flooding your inbox this morning, right?
Yeah, no, I have a lot of sales outreach and follow up flooding my inbox, and it's kind of distracting. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. So to go on from here, what's happening over there that made this call so important to you? Stop.
Well,
Don't answer.
I was going to come up with something.
I know.
This is awesome.
That's the transition statement. Everybody always says, how do you get out of this respect contract and start actual discovery? And I want to start at the end. The reason that I say, well, what's happening over there is that there's some third party thing happening. I don't want to say, Chris, why did you want to take this call? Because I don't care why Chris wanted to take the call. I want to know what happened over there that makes Chris want to take this call, right? And again, nobody's going to hang up on you if you say, well, Chris, why'd you want to take this call? But I want to get in quickly to the weeds as best I can. So that's why that transition statement is so important, and that it's a very specific open-ended question. But I'll shut up and let you ask anything you want about the respect contract.
Yeah. One thing I would ask customers is, what piqued your interest to take the call? And what I'm getting is actually that might not be the best question, is what you're saying, right? So if you were to provide me some coaching, maybe it's more like what's happening recently. I just wanted to double click on
I wouldn't even say recent. I would just say what's happening over there that makes you want to take this call? Because it could be, well, nothing's happened, but we know we need to budget for this. We've got a project coming up. So nothing bad. When you say what's happened, it's often indicating something bad.
Oh, good point.
Okay. I'm okay with that. But if I say what's happening over there, not what's happening recently, right? But by the way, the difference between having the word recently and not having it is a Richardism. That doesn't mean you shouldn't use it. If it fits, use it. If you feel comfortable saying recently, do it. Don't say, like I said, here's the script, but 80% is going to be the same. Make sure you find your authenticity, right? If Chris, if you want to say recently, then you should, right? That's not going to be a reason someone doesn't do business with you.
That's a great call out. You're giving us a framework, but we can, ultimately make sure that our phraseology is authentic to ourselves. So it's good to know that at the end of the day, authenticity is more important than saying the perfect words exactly the right way, because I don't know about you, but as a kid, I really did struggle with perfectionism, and it's partly what's helped me be successful. But in the past, especially when I started out in sales, I would overanalyze a little bit, and that can actually lead to like delaying action, like taking too long to write cold emails or overthinking cold calls. And do you have any thoughts on whether like being overly analytical can actually be a hindrance when it comes to sales, and if being analytical is actually impactful in certain aspects of sales?
So I have this problem, and Scott, I try to be a perfectionist, but I'm not even one in the first place, but I try, right? As opposed to people who I know who are real perfectionists. But, Scott has always guided me with that. Most of the time, a B+ is just fine. Like a B+ will get you there, right? And get you there in a healthy and great way. So,
wow,
that to me has just been, he's given me a couple of thoughts around stuff, and that's just one of them. That's just, I constantly have to remind myself, right? like even the other day, we had someone on our podcast and that person let us know that the person who does our artwork put the wrong person up, right? And Scott's like, way to go, Richard. And I'm like, yeah, well, it's a B plus. So we've had 500 episodes and that's the second time it's happened. That's so.
It's unbelievable. Like I haven't come near 500. I might have hit 100, and my goal is to get to 500 one day, like yourself. So thank you for modeling the way. But I've had some like disastrous, like the live streams crashing, and we had to reschedule, and then I showed up as a black screen, and I just really felt a weight come off my shoulders when you said B plus is often good enough, so I appreciate you sharing that. By the way, we have a couple questions now in the chat. So way to step up, guys. Thank you for your participation. I will say though, selfishly, is there anything else you want to highlight on that, that respect? And if correct me, actually, am I saying it wrong? The respect contract?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Because go ahead.
Yeah. There's a couple of things. So one, the 5-minute piece at the beginning, whether you had a hard stop or not, I was still going to say, let's take 5 minutes, because we've all been in meetings where you run out of time.
Oh yeah.
And then you go, oh shoot, I'll send you an email next week and we'll schedule the next meeting.
Awkward.
And then it just takes 2 weeks to get that meeting on the books. So 1, 2, when I do that, yes, I actually have a timer, and yes, I let it go off, and yes, I let the prospect know, because they're not embarrassed by it. Like you're showing them that you made the commitment to respect their time. And so you are respecting their time. So that's the first thought. The second piece is, that part at the end where if it's not going to work out, they can tell me or I can tell you. Using that word, is that fair, is critical, because at that moment, we are now on an even playing field. We have now said either one of us have the power to walk away respectfully. So that word fair means something. And in addition, and then the transition statement, which is really critical. But then if someone goes dark on you and you've done a good respect contract with that word, whether you use the word fair or not, it's okay. But, you can say, hey, Chris, haven't heard from you in a while. When we first spoke, we both agreed if it wasn't a good fit, we'd let each other know. Oftentimes when I go 2 or 3 weeks without hearing from someone, it means they've made another decision or project has changed. Can you just let me know if that's where we're at or what the next best steps are? So it's a very specific way to call them back out on this social respect contract that they agreed to, without saying, so, okay, just checking in, just touching base, just reaching out, so anyway, so that's a big piece of the word fair, the 5-minute rule, and the transition statement. So
I love that it sets a context where you can get to the truth. And I had a mentor at my Google Cloud days that celebrated disqualification in our territory. I was the inside seller. There was an SDR underneath us, and or our peer, really. And I just love that. And so it allows you to check in with the prospect, and they can tell you, what, I moved on, or I went with a competitor, and it takes the pressure off them, and you can be honest, and then boom, you can move on to the next one, basically.
Yeah. And by the way, even when you send that email and they've agreed in the respect contract, they still might stay dark and ghost you.
Yeah.
But at least we know I did it right in the beginning. I'm doing it properly here. I'm being super professional and not annoying. And I can go to bed at night knowing I'm doing my job the right way. All the way back to that stress piece you were talking about, and the perfectionist is like, clearly I didn't do something right, but I did this part. So anyway,
I'd say you're getting an A+ on that. And it's just a good reminder that we are sales professionals, and it's a craft and a career to be proud of. And establishing these contracts and engaging in the way that you're describing is truly showing up like a pro. And if anything, there will be mutual respect. So, okay, we do have a couple of questions. Jamarcus and Stephen, thanks for your patience. So Jamarcus Jones says, I do B2B digital marketing sales, which is a little bit different from SaaS, and I'm having trouble finding a pain or need for marketing. Any suggestions on that?
Yeah, well, I think the first suggestion is, and Jamarcus, thank you for asking. I don't know where you are in your career, early stage. I don't know if you're at a big company or a small company. That's actually a product marketing question. someone should be telling you what the pains that they experience are, right? And if the pains that your company's saying, well, they can't convert or they can't do that, they need to go deeper, right? So it's a little bit of a customer conversation first, like doing some research to say, like if you have a couple of customers, just say, what made you even decide to work with us? Like what was actually going on? What happened that made you want to take this call? What happened that made you want to buy our B2B marketing digital solution? So understanding that and then digging in deep. If you go in sounding like everybody else, Marcus, I think you're gonna sound like everybody else. If you need leads and this, or if you're struggling with this and that, and the key piece is to get to the emotional pain. So if someone's struggling and they need your services, what's the emotional pain they feel? Is it that they're spending 6 hours a week on stuff that should be streamlined, right? Like, think about the abacus versus the Excel spreadsheet, like what has that done in the world, right? So where is that piece? And trying to understand the difference, Jamarcus, at a high level, what's the difference between them having a headache and them having a migraine? Because we're trying to get to the migraines. So when you say that, oh yeah, we're struggling with this, it's like, okay, well, what happens because of that? How often does it happen? How many people does it affect? How much time is wasted? How many dollars are wasted doing it? And so you're digging and digging and digging to get to a migraine. So I hope that's helpful, Jamarcus.
What a great insight. And Jamarcus, let us know your thoughts. And if you have follow-up questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. We just got another question from Jennifer as well, but Stephen was next. So he said, wow, that pitch may have provided an answer to my question. He might have been referring to the respect contract.
Right.
But in my day-to-day, I'm booking meetings, but my show rate is not the best. Would I use a similar pitch to get them committed to attend?
A little bit. So there's a couple of things on the show rate, and there's a couple of ways. So I teach the respect contract. So there's digital and verbal. So we went through the verbal respect contract, right? So digitally, yes, you send the calendar invite. Yes, you can put the agenda in the calendar if you want, but I don't know. I never read the agenda till the thing pops up. What I also do is I have an email, and it's a template that says, hey, Chris, and the subject line is proposed agenda for discussion. And then it says, hey, Chris, looking forward to chatting. Here's the proposed agenda. Please let me know if there's something you'd like to add. It's going to be introductions. It's going to be understanding your world, explaining what we do, and then determining if there should be next steps. That's the first meeting of everybody. That's everybody's first meeting, right? And then for me, I'll say, and by the way, I ask everybody these questions. Hey, at the end of a sales training, you'll know it was successful because we've helped the team get better at blank, blank, and blank. What fills in those blanks for you? Looking forward to chatting, Richard. So now this email that I send gets about a 94% open rate, probably a 28% response rate.
Wow. No, wait, that's unbelievable based on typical statistics. Can you put in a perspective? Do you know the standard cold email open and response rate?
So this is this is someone who's agreed to a meeting.
Excuse
for the question that Stephen asked.
Yeah. Totally.
So now, and then I will probably go and connect with them on LinkedIn. So now all of a sudden, 3 things are in their inbox: the calendar invite, this proposed agenda. Who doesn't open an email that says proposed agenda, right? And then this LinkedIn thing, which never gets sent to spam as best I can tell. So now there's 3 things within a few minutes or maybe an hour or so going to their inbox to reinforce. Right? So that's one thing. And then again, Stephen, everybody's got that, if you like sending the, the email 24 hours ahead or 2 hours ahead or something like that. I have no statistics to this. The 24-hour ahead is okay, but I'm ADHD, so I kind of see it and forget it. 2 hours ahead is probably really good for Richard. For me, if I see it about 2 hours ahead, that doesn't even mean I see it all the time too, because I'm busy, but but there's no math to that. There's no science behind my suggestion. It's a Richardism. I just don't know, how often people see those. And if you're selling to IT and technical people, on the one hand, they might be so busy they never check their email. On the other hand, they might read every single email that comes through, or at least glance at it. I don't know. So.
That's a good point. It depends on the person. I'll tell you, and I'm just a account executive here, but I do have moments or days where I get into like deep work or meetings. So a couple hours in advance might not be enough. So It seems like, you know what I'm saying? And so imagine, but man, talk about hitting that, question from multiple angles. Really great advice. And now Jennifer has a question. So what would be a good script for calling on a renewal?
So there's a couple of things. So one, if you haven't talked to them all year long, you're going to have a problem, right? So imagine you haven't talked to someone and now they're just calling about the renewal. My scripts are usually pretty generic of, hey, your 2024 planning guidelines, like, hey, and so for me, I've always had a piece of collateral, right? I've always had like, here's what's happening in the industry, right? So I might say your 2024, next steps and guidelines. And hey, Jennifer, looking forward, I thought you might like this. It's also time for us to discuss your renewal. How does Tuesday at 4 sound? Like, don't ask in an email if they're going to renew. Ask for a meeting. Short of, I could see like a transactional business like a Yelp or something where it is supposed to be done in email. Like I can understand where that might be the way, but I don't know if that resonates, Jennifer, or not. But
one thing you called out is there is a difference between a transactional business and more of like a strategic solution selling motion. And one thing I got from you is that you need to be proactive and building touch points in a relationship well before the renewal, right? Because if you're reaching out just for the renewal, there's a risk that they're like, oh, this is just a transactionally based relationship, which I mean, the relationship, yes, is based on that. But any thoughts on how to like nurture relationships proactively? Is that
don't same thing for the renewal is don't treat them like a booty call, right? Like don't wait till the last minute. Seriously. I don't know if that's even a phrase these days. I don't know. So I'm old. But
that's a good line.
All right.
That's a good line.
So,
I like it.
So, you can always maintain your relationship with your client by just passing along an article. Every time you connect with your client, does not need to have an ask of them, right? It's not to, hey, do you want this? Do you want to upgrade? Do you want to buy more seats? And then it's like, hey, here's some industry news. Hey, I saw this about your company. Hey, I saw your CEO was on this. That's cool. Like you don't even have to ask anything. Just say, show them you're paying attention.
I love it.
That's the key piece, which is, and if you think about it, that's every relationship. Like how many of us have been in a relationship where we felt like I'm not getting the attention I need, crave, and or deserve based on what I'm putting into it, right? So it's the same thing. So, it's personal, If you think sales isn't personal, think again.
The Challenger sale said that relational sellers, like relationship folks, end up at the bottom of the food chain, and the Challenger who teaches, tailors, and takes control of the conversation and creates constructive tension ends up at the top. But I will tell you, I love building personal relationships, and I've noticed in my career so far, and I have a long way to go, that I have some customers now that probably would buy from me, wherever I go. So what are your thoughts on
it's
being a relationship?
Yeah. So this is the thing that I really love a lot of things about Challenger because they reframed a lot of old school thoughts that in many cases isn't that new. Where does it say that a relationship means you can't challenge someone? In fact, my closest relationships, my closest friends are the ones who call me out on my bullshit, right? So if I have a strong relationship with Chris, I'm going to say, Chris, look, here's the deal. You may not like what I have to say, but you're going to appreciate the fact that I'm honest about it, right? Here's what I think, all the way back to the respect contract. Hey, if it's not a good fit, you tell me, and likewise, I'll tell you. So here I am building a relationship of trust and honesty and sincerity, and I'm going to tell you when things aren't going right. So the fact that they have to be separate is the part that I think frustrates me, right? It's kind of like, quantum physics. Somebody can correct me on this. Quantum computing is the ability of, computers do things in certain linear progressions. The algorithm does the math in a certain order. Quantum physics means it does them at the same time. So imagine, for lack of a better phrase, I just read this the other day. Instead of flipping a coin and it's either heads or tails, what if it's both heads and tails at the same time? And or it's heads and tails and it's standing on its edge. So now you have so much more surface area. So this idea that you're either a challenger or a relationship is either heads or tails. Why can't you be both?
I like that you challenge my black and white thinking, like all or nothing. You're either a challenger or a relationship person. You can have the best of both worlds and find a great, I guess, middle ground. So very insightful. And, Jamarcus is back. Remember he was saying that he does B2B digital marketing sales, and he wanted to understand how to find a pain or need for marketing. Now he followed up saying, I can't even get into conversations. I don't know why I'm laughing. It sounds rough. This is sales, right? So look, listen, Richard, he says we do in-house. We don't do digital marketing. So I guess he gets those objections.
Yeah.
He says, I'm doing a lot of outside prospecting also because our leads have been ran through. So if you need me to repeat anything from that, let me know.
No,
take it away.
Marcus, if your boss isn't listening, if your boss is listening, put on some earmuffs. But it might be time to go somewhere else. Like straight up. Like, I don't know you well. I don't know how long you've been there. You may have just started 3 weeks ago or 2 months ago and you're not ready to jump and all those things, or you're nervous about the economy and losing. I get it. And if that's the case, stick with where you're getting a paycheck, man. You got to pay. You got to stay alive. Like, I get it. So that is one thing. It may be that it's not the right, if it's an early stage startup, maybe they don't have product market fit yet. They think they do. I don't know. The answer to your question of, and this is a script. What did they say that was? Oh, we do it all in house.
Yes.
Well, it's like, oh, Chris, you do it all in house. Well, that's why I'm calling, because most of the people we talk to who do it in house don't realize we can do this. How do you handle that problem? Right. Oh, you're too busy right now. Well, that's why I'm calling. Nobody's really sort of expecting my call. How does later today at 2 work? Oh, you're using the competition. Well, that's why I'm calling. A lot of people who are with the competition didn't know that we could do this differently. And the key phrase to all of those is, that's why I'm calling. Because I'm agreeing with them. You're right. You are doing it in-house. And who doesn't like someone who agrees with them? So, and the key for that is, 1, it's psychological. 2, it gives you a split second to figure out, well, what am I going to say after that's why I'm calling? This is why you need a script. You need to know exactly what to say if it's the competition. That's why I'm calling. Whenever someone tells me it's about the competition, they don't often realize blank. So 80% of that is the script. What comes after is, the other side. So that's why I'm calling is a great one. If they're picking up the phone. Now, if they're not picking up the phone, it's a whole other ballgame, Jamarcus.
So that's why I'm calling is an approach to objection handling that I hadn't heard of before. So I really love that. So I'm going to try that out myself.
I'm going to interrupt you. Stop handling objections. You don't handle objections. Nobody wants to be handled. My wife does not want to be handled. My children don't want to be handled. Marinate in the objection. Spend time. Oh, what do you like about it? That's why I'm calling. Nobody knows this about us. So I'm marinating and agreeing with them about their objection. I'm spending a moment in their headspace. So stop handling objections. Not here's the big book of objections. Whenever they say the competition, here's what you say back. No, that's not what you do. You ask questions first, then you can say something back. So marinate in the objection. So anyway, all right, I'll shut up.
Marinate in the objection and stop handling objections. That is such a good point. I love that you called that out. Okay. And so Jamarcus says, I like that, Richard. Couple of these emojis, you know.
Yeah,
so he said he's also reading the Challenger Sale. Hey, it's a good book, and it's interesting that you think that it's like old concepts rephrased. And he did say, "I'm trying to get into SaaS, so I'm working on that." So I think you already had an inclination he might be looking for a different.
So here's the other deal, Jamarcus. Here's my piece of advice for you. Someone's going to sit there in an interview and say, "Well, you don't have any SaaS experience." So you look them in the eye and you just say, "Chris, totally agree with you. Just out of curiosity, what on my resume want you want to even talk to me today?" Now they got to tell you on why you're there, because there's nothing about selling SaaS that's hard. There's nothing about selling SaaS that's harder than anything else. And I will go to the grave on that. And anybody's boss wants to disagree with me, like, find my phone number. It's on my LinkedIn profile. I'll debate it live, hardcore. So
I love it. Oh my gosh.
Don't fall for that shit.
I'm so glad you threw that up, because that is so useful to a lot of this audience trying to break into tech sales. You're going to come up, against that objection, and you just gave them a way to handle it very confidently and put things on the interviewer where they're selling you, I think is what you're saying.
This is what I mean. They suck at interviewing, right? Jamarcus, I might even say this is to say, if you walk in or you're on Zoom and you're like, "Hey, I know one of your biggest questions about me is going to be that I don't have SaaS experience. Let's talk about that first." Like, just take over the interview. So, and if that's one of your concerns, is that one of your concerns? And they'll say, sort of, maybe. Okay. Well, just out of curiosity, what's your concern? Why am I here? Why'd you want to talk to me then? So now they got to sell you on why they think you should be there.
All you guys got to do is channel the confidence and genius of Richard Harris, and you'll be golden.
You don't. All you got to do is channel the scripts I've given you, and it doesn't matter how you sound the first time you say it. You don't get a lot of practice with that. Hence, you practicing the scripts. But anyway, all right. I'll shut up.
So Steven Rivera has another great question. There's some good context to it. However, I just wanted to get your thoughts on what are the qualities that someone needs to embody to be successful in the SDR role. Because what I'm getting from you is you don't have to be a genius to sell SaaS, and this is a very accessible path. So what are just high level the qualities that you need to embody that everyone's capable of?
Yeah, I think you certainly have to have a level of resilience, right? Because you're going to have those days. I think you also have to have a level of a growth mindset and being willing to stub your toe and go, yes, own the moment that it fails. Feel bad. You're allowed to feel bad. But then go, what would I do differently? And rather than say, what would I do differently? I would say, what's one thing I would do differently? Because you can't change the whole thing. What's one thing? There may have been 5 on the call, but what's one? Don't try and fix all 5. You can't. I also think coachability is really important. And I also think self-education is really important.
So Steven's question now. We're a new BDR team. We serve small to mid-sized companies, 6,000 businesses, over 70 different industries. Wow. A texting SaaS for business, basically. I've niched down to nonprofits at home care franchises. The sales team still seems to be figuring out the ropes. Everyone else is after random industries. Would you say sticking to 2 to 3 industries is a good course of action?
So if I understand the question, 6,000 companies over 70 different industries. Steven, if you're an expert in one industry, why would I go try another one? Right? I do not think you should do that. Now, if the company's new and they're trying to figure it all out, new companies, I always advise is you can go after 2 to 3 verticals at most until you perfect them. The other verticals will find you. Trust me, don't worry. Now, it's hard to always figure out what are the right 2 or 3 early on. So that's one thing to think about, Steven, is yes, if you're good at 2 or 3, then you can do 2 or 3. Now, if you're really good at one and you want to go get a second, here's how that works. You are not allowed to call into a second industry or a new vertical until you did one meeting. Let's just say you're an SDR. If it's Tuesday, I can't focus on my new vertical until I set up one meeting on my current vertical, the one where I'm an expert. Because at that moment, all right, I got my meeting, pressure's off. Because if I bounce back and forth, you end up hurting yourselves in both verticals. And before you know it, Wednesday comes along and you are stressed out. So only go after a new vertical one at a time, and only go after it when you've set a meeting for that day or whatever it is that you're measuring. I don't know what you're measuring. So, or, whatever, even if you're an AE, I wouldn't try to call into a new industry till I accomplish something in my current industry that actually affects my pipeline, that I can feel good about. Okay, if I go to this other vertical today and I strike out, I'm not stressing because I also didn't get anything else done. And you wrapped around all that is the fact that because you got something done, your confidence is up. You got the energy. Like, don't go Cadillac around the bases after you set an appointment, SDRs. Get back on the phone and leverage that energy. It's like, come on, somebody answer the phone. Like, let's go.
Yeah, come on, let's get fired up. Let's hear some chatter on the sales floor. I love that nuance that you said there is ride the high when you get the meeting and turn that momentum into more momentum.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a limited time here, and shoot, we got Richard. This is one of the most active chats I've ever seen, and you were the cause of it. You brought that out. You got folks to step up and ask questions, so thank you for that. Okay, one question is, what do you say after the introduction phase in a demo call? What questions do you ask?
So this is a different respect contract, right? So for me, I'm going to go quick in time. Is to say, hey, Chris, before we jump into this demo, non-introduction, blah, blah, blah. Hey, before we jump into the demo, I want to make sure these are the 3 things you want to see, right? Is there something else that you want to make sure we cover today? Because I don't need to give you death by 1,000 mouse clicks, Chris. And Chris will give me some response back, and I'll be like, so no problem. And just so I know, Chris, I know after this demo, you're going to go back to your team after this call, right? Who's the most skeptical person on the team whenever you bring something up? What are they most skeptical about? Because now we're making Chris think about somebody else on the team. And we're trying to figure out those pains because there's maybe something in the demo I can show based on what Chris answers. By the way, Chris, I know it's just you today, or you and Sarah. If there's somebody else that might want to, that could have been here or at some point would be a part of the process, feel free to think like them for a minute and ask me questions as we go through the demo. So those are the kind of things I say. And then the last thing I would say is like, so Chris, and Sarah, we go through this demo, everything goes perfectly, because if it blows up in my face, I know I'm never hearing from you. Aside from that meeting that's going to happen, what are the next steps on your side so I understand what's going on? So I'm pre-qualifying, trying to get to another meeting before I even start the demo. Because I already know what's going to happen. I go talk to my team, got to figure out who doesn't like it. I got to figure out who does like it. I got to see how long that fits and all these other projects. Now, I spit out about 5 questions. I don't know that you could ask all 5 before you start the demo because they'll get impatient, but certainly the skeptical one and, what happens after this are the 2 most important.
So I want to finish up talking about the seller's journey and neat selling and things like that, but I'm going to try and squeeze in a little more before that. And by the way, we're almost at the 5-minute mark, right? And I want to use one of your tips, your pro moves. Confirming, do you have a hard stop, or if we went like a minute or 2 over,
I can go.
Okay, you can.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, cool. Okay. So, cold calling. It's funny how we actually put that in the back burner, but I did want to hit on it. Let's walk through a little bit of a script or a framework. Like, of course, we're gonna want to know, like, how do you open the call, but take it away where you may.
Here's how you do it. I pick up the phone, someone answers the phone. My first response is, yeah. Oh, wow. Someone picked up the phone.
Yeah. I love that. I haven't heard that one.
Like, yeah, it's like, oh, wow. Someone picked up the phone. Like, Chris, you just made my day. By the way, if you don't like what I have to say, you can just hang up on me. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Chris, wow. Now they might hang up on you, but
that was so good.
I'm so off guard by, oh, wow, someone picked up the phone. That's one. You can also just say, yep, this is a cold call, and I got the most exciting thing to tell you. here's what it is, and hang up if you don't like it. Like, you know, like you can just sort of try to throw them off their base a little bit. So those are two of my favorites. Another one that I like is called the research call. It's like, hey, Chris, reaching out to people like you and trying to do some research on how, you know, people in your role solve this problem. Oh, by the way, I'm not going to try and sell you on this phone call. And so now I'm just doing research and I'm asking questions and I'm learning and I'm building a rapport and a trust. And then, thanks, Chris, I really appreciate it. You know, maybe a week later, I'll call back and see, hey, Chris, you know, I was thinking about our conversation. You know, thank you so much for that advice. It was really good. By the way, we do have this solution. Would you be open to even hearing about it?
Yeah, I'm open.
So
Sure.
now the flip side of that is, you know, if they say yes to the research call and you say, I'm not going to sell you, at some point it might turn into, they might be, well, what are you trying to do? What do you do? It's like, well, hold on, Chris, I'm going to answer your question for context, but I promise you I'm not going to sell you, but here's what we do. Now, all of a sudden you've got permission to pitch them to a certain degree. So anyway, those are my two favorite cold calls.
Oh gosh, I've had a lot of thought leaders like yourself on, and I have to say, you might have the best cold call openers I've heard. You really just made me laugh out loud. Like, oh, you actually picked up. It's cool when you hear something a little different. I hear a lot about the permission-based openers and this and that, and they're all good and they work. So kudos to you for the creativity and making us all laugh. I love it.
And you got to, you know, I mean, I teach 4 or 5 different scripts, but you got to find the one that's authentic to you. If humor's not your thing, then don't do it, right?
Imagine someone like you're feeling really nervous. You're not going to be like, oh, you actually picked up. But I actually, one thing I used when I was more nervous on making cold calls is, hey, Richard, this is Chris. I'm calling from Bespin Global. I honestly hate making cold calls, but I thought it'd be really important to talk to you. Do you have 15 seconds for me to tell you why I'm calling?
Yeah.
And it just, I was admitting that I did hate making cold calls. Like, okay, this is a human being, sure. And like, I feel a little bad for him, but it reminds me of, did you ever read the Sandler or Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at a Seminar, the Sandler
Never
methodology?
read that. No.
It talks about the dummy curve and how like essentially a salesperson who's so polished could actually threaten the prospect. And when you act almost, I'm not saying act dumb, but like, you're not too polished and maybe you show vulnerability, it can make the prospect feel more comfortable. Now, could you validate that as someone who's seasoned of 20 plus years of experience?
Yeah, so I would say that aligns with what I was saying about asking for and giving directions.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not setting myself up to be the expert all the time, right? I'm setting myself up to learn. And then there are moments where I'm the smart person about a particular thing, but the customer is the smart person in the room about their experience.
Yes.
I'm just going to get them to tell me the story. So I can't walk in telling them what their problem is, even if I know. I still have to ask them, what made you take this call today? What happened over there that's making this call important? So
is there anything you would share in terms of when you get the opportunity to frame the value of your solution? Like maybe you're doing the research approach and you actually do tell them what you do. You know, I'd love to hear how you approach that. At a high level.
Yeah, this is first time I'm going to say it, but it's in the book. So NEAT selling stands for need, the economic impact of that need, access to authority, and timeline. Like that's my philosophy of stuff.
And guys, quick thing, check out the book in the description of this video. You can like, I guess, is RSVP the right word? Yeah.
The seller's journey. There it is. A top secret. Don't tell anybody.
This is crazy.
I'm launching February 22nd, but if you go to Amazon now, don't tell anybody.
Everyone go to Amazon. Okay.
Yeah. It's actually going to be in all the places. There's actually another small company bookstore online that I want to promote too. Once it's all
and Richard, it reminds me of like spin selling. I feel like this is going to be an iconic book. I love the expression NEAT. And can you just tell us one more time what the acronym stands for?
Yeah, need, the economic impact of that need, which we'll come back to in a second. Access to authority, because you're never getting to authority, and timeline, which is why I was saying earlier in the demo thing, like, who's the most skeptical? I don't need to know who's not at the demo, who's going to be the access, who's going to be the authority figure to sign. I don't need to know who that is. I need to know who's skeptical. Because I got to get through the skeptics. So
Quick thought I just wanted to
Yeah.
say on that is recently I had a customer that I won working with the chief technical architect or like founder, maybe the CTO, and they left us. It was like a billing relationship with no notice. And it's because there was someone who is a skeptic, the CEO. And I assumed that my guy who signed the contract was enough. So to your point, you could actually have a customer that leaves you because you didn't do the work up front. So to your point, you want to know that early before you close the deal.
I know on the first call and after a demo call, there's always a skeptic. So why not ask for what you want? I don't care, because I'm not getting to the authority unless I get to the skeptic. So back to your question around the piece. So economic impact is about what is the cost of the pain right now in dollars and cents. And so that's part of how I teach discovery is getting to what are those pains? How much does that equate to dollars? If you have that pain and you're spending time on it, what are the other 6 things on your to-do list that you can't get to? And because you can't get to them, how much is that affecting your ability to grow and make money? So getting to economic impact is way, way more important because it's about here, now, and in the present. That's why I hate the ROI conversation, because nobody's going to believe the R. They're only going to see the I. CFOs use the ROI. I'm going fast because of the time, but CFOs use ROI to scare you. It's like, well, I don't know, what's the ROI of your mom? Which I think is Gary V's line. So I won't claim.
Say that one more time. You've had so many good lines, but what's the ROI? What's the ROI to your mom or of your mom?
Of your mom.
Oh,
how much is, right? Like, equate all of that.
Oh, I see. Like, no, I tell my mom all the time, I'm like, thank you for giving me life. Like, I have nothing without you. Like, seriously, she is the best.
So I was literally,
but anyways, you're right. Okay. So that's what you're saying. You literally can't calculate it.
I told my wife, because, I'm doing some books and I'm signing one with my mom. And I was like, honey, can I say, hey, Mom, thanks for sleeping with Dad. This book wouldn't be here without you.
Thank you for sacrificing.
Rolls her eyes, and my wife rolls her eyes at me. But,
I love that.
Sorry, that's a little much. But so economic impact is about here and now. ROI is about the future, which we cannot predict. Right? All these CFOs who want to know about the ROI, great job telling us about Silicon Valley Bank. Good job. Way to go. Excellent. Thumbs
up. And you're
up.
out in Silicon Valley, by the way, right? You're out there?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So, anyway, so driving to economic impact about doing discovery at such a deep level that you're getting to the dollarization and numberization of the problem.
Yeah.
That's economic impact. And when you ask questions in such a way that they give you their numbers, because they will easily, even if they say they don't know, you can still get them to give you numbers. Now they know whether or not they have a headache or a migraine. And that's the difference. So that when it comes to the ROI conversation, well, ROI is, you told me this was, you told me you had a $2 million problem and we're a $75,000 solution. Are your numbers not right? Were you lying then, or are you lying to me now? So you lied, you can't really say that, you get the point. So anyway, so that's economic impact.
Wow. Okay. And so in like a call, like a discovery call, you're really getting to the dollarized impact. And no question, if there's a $2 million problem and it costs us $75,000, it's a no-brainer. And so in a cold call, if you get the opportunity to tell someone why you're calling or what you do you basically frame the value through the lens of a customer story focused on dollar impact?
So here's the thing that I see this all the time. Nobody cares what you do. Hey, Richard, we're the leading sales trainer of blah, 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 N.E.A.T selling. And our founder just wrote this book called The Seller's Journey. Nobody fucking cares. Nobody cares. Right? You know what they do care? Hi, this is Richard. You know what? I teach reps how to earn the right to ask questions, which questions to ask and when. How many people on your team are suffering from that illness? That's the question. So talk about the pains you solve, not what you do. And the pain you solve is based on the experience they have. Right? And you got to make sure you don't sound cheesy, right? Because look, we all know sales leaders are on their computers Sunday night running through reports. So to pick up the phone and say, would you like to have your Sunday nights back because you're working on too many reports? Might work, might not, because that might sound a little ShamWow.
What's keeping you up at night? Like things like that. So, okay. And Speaking of keeping you up at night, I'm the one keeping you up at night tonight, but thank you so much. And I just have a couple more questions. Okay.
Sure.
Like maybe cut myself off at 2 or 3. I noticed on your profile, it's like earn the right to ask questions. You mentioned asking questions at the right time. Maybe we could just focus real quick on what this means to earn the right to ask
So
questions.
that goes back to the respect contract.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Right. That goes back to, hey, we're on a fact-finding mission. You know, I know I'm going to ask you some questions to figure out what's going on. I know you want to ask me questions. I just earned the right. And then because I said they could walk away, and I can walk away, but I just said Chris could walk away, I've earned the right to ask him any questions because now he can walk away.
Okay. Thank you for putting another emphasis on what it looks like to earn the right to ask questions through the upfront contract, the respect contract. So as we close out, one topic we don't always talk about on this channel is closing. Because we're very focused on the SDR role and entry level, like, you know, getting the meeting and all those things, and you're closing to get the next meeting on a cold call and things like that. But any thoughts on, you know, closing? And I know it could apply to like winning many little agreements in sales throughout the journey and then closing a final deal. But this is such a broad question, but are there scripts or are there thoughts that you have around closing?
So my favorite question to always ask is, hey, Chris, what's the one thing that's going to prevent this deal from going forward? Because I don't need to close it. I need to know what's going to prevent it from closing. Hey, Chris, it's the holidays. You know, at your organization, what are the things that could get in the way over there? So that's kind of those are the quick ones. We could go into a whole thing if you want to have me back. I'd be happy to, but we go into a whole thing about closing and how to discount and how not to discount and how to let them beg for a discount without them realizing they're begging.
Hey, you know what? This is such a good cliffhanger for the next one. It's a great round 2, but I will say
I love the book. Sorry.
Yeah. Guys, we have to leave a little something for the book. Come on.
Yeah.
So again, guys, it's linked in the description of this video. You can get ahead of the game and because it's coming out in February. So I'm definitely going to check it out. I'm excited for it. And what you hit on is reducing friction to the close, which is quite insightful. So okay, 2 more questions. I can tell you them right now. One is like, what are your thoughts on what it takes to live a great life? That sounds funny, but the theme is like sell more, live more. And so there's a heavy personal growth aspect. You know, it's about helping. So I'd love your thoughts on that.
So if I understand the question is try to give yourself some grace. When you make mistakes, own it. It's okay. You're a human just like everybody else. Give yourself some grace, right? It's okay. That's if I understood the question right. Like, what's the advice for the life side of this kind of stuff? That's my advice.
Absolutely. Living a great life. And I think if we all gave ourselves more grace and didn't self-flagellate as much, we would experience a lot more self-love and that might spill over into just our lives. So, you know, I love that. And that's an answer. I throw these broad questions up and I haven't heard that one before. So let's give ourselves some grace. The final question is any challenge to the audience?
Only challenge. Sure. Here's one. 1, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. 2, if you ever have a question, my real cell phone number right here is 415-596-9149, 415-596-9149. I challenge you to text me with a question sometime.
Wow.
There you go.
Richard, thank you for your generosity, your energy, your inspiration, your insight. I'm going to be rewatching the game tape after this because this is about to post to YouTube and LinkedIn to, you know, soak up what you taught me. And I mean, I've got notes right here and I hope you guys are taking notes as well. So I can't wait for round 2. Guys, check out the book, connect with Richard and be courageous and shoot him a text. Richard, any other final thoughts as we sign off?
No, thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks to the audience for asking some really good questions. I hope this was helpful to everybody. That's my biggest goal is to just try and help everybody do, you know, one thing a little differently, hoping that it's going to make you better.
Mission accomplished. And especially trying out that cold call opener. Oh, wow, you actually picked up. Guys, to your success in tech sales and in life, happy selling and happy living. And we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks, Chris.